Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cauldron here on Times Television. My name is Chavez Banda, and the Cauldron is where editors meet. We gather here just to discuss matters that have got a direct bearing on our country. Time permitting, we also fly outside the country just to see what is happening internationally. And again, we also get back to the country, and this time around, we get straight into the newsroom to see the trends that are happening within the newsroom in terms of the media. My name is Chavez Banda once again. Today I have Innocent Mpongolo coming from Miji Radio. Innocent is the news editor there at Miji Radio. Innocent, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
This is the program where editors meet. The idea is always to sit down and discuss issues that are making rounds in both traditional and the social media. Today, we want to look at the debt plan that Dr. Chakwera, as president of Malawi, has put in place to say he recognizes the fact that government is sitting on a huge debt stock, both domestically and the foreign debt. So they have come up with what they are calling a debt plan or a strategy to manage the debt that the country is sitting on. Now, first of all, this debt plan intends to bring down debt to what they are calling manageable levels, sustainable levels of having debt as a country. I want to look at the four things that they have highlighted, according to Mr. Mlusu, with his Ministry of Finance, to say, one, the strategy talks about pushing for debt relief. Two, they want to achieve what they are calling public expenditure efficiency. Three, they are talking about boosting domestic revenue collection. And the last one, the fourth one, is the external resource mobilization. Four very ambitious points or factors that they want to pursue to bring down debt to manageable levels. Innocent. We should start with perhaps one or two of these particular items. But first and foremost, what brings us to this particular level to say our debt levels are not sustainable? Understandably, we had Dr. Chakwera and of course Mr. Mlusu saying they inherited a huge debt stock from the previous administration. Is this true, Innocent? What has happened for us to find ourselves in this particular situation to say our debt levels are not sustainable?
Yeah, I would say I think we've been so reckless. We've been running our affairs on borrowed money.
Exactly.
We wanted to develop, wanted to eat, wanted to dress, basing on other people's money. I think that's the kind of recklessness that as a country we've had. Saying that the debt was inherited from the previous regime, that would be true. But now I think as a government, I think it paints a bad picture when you're pointing fingers at the previous regimes.
Yes.
Because at the time of campaigning, doing everything, at least you should have known what kind of a situation we have in the country. However, I'll be quick to point out that I want to commend the President and the Finance Minister. The realization that the debts we are in are unattainable, I think that alone is something that we have to applaud the leadership for that kind of realization. And coming up with the plan now, as that has spelled, I think it's something encouraging. But talking about the debts, I think the debts really are unattainable, unmanageable, and at the rate we are going, I think one day we'll wake up losing almost everything just because we're failing to settle the debts that we have.
Now, in terms of debt servicing, it seems our country has had huge problems. We can say Malawi has been involved in what I can call some kind of a Ponzi scheme to say if I am indebted, I would go borrow from William and pay to you.
Yes.
And for me to pay to William, I'll borrow from Wanda and pay to William. And the other day, I'll borrow from Rex and pay to Wanda. Very unsustainable. Now, what I want to say is it a good idea? We want to start now the first point, which government is saying they want to push for debt relief. This is not a thing which is only happening to the government of Malawi. It is also happening within the SADC region to many countries. I heard a certain group of a certain group of people coming from the SADC region during the time Malawi was hosting the SADC summit in Lilongwe. They gathered at BICC on the sidelines of the summit. They said we want to lobby with the presidents to push for debt relief for many countries within the Southern African Development Community. So we can say this matter is not only exclusive to Malawi, but this time around we're talking about Malawi as a government. Do you think it is a good idea? We should start from debt relief. Do you think it is a good idea? This debt relief is not going to happen. If we are going to achieve it, it will not happen for the first time. We heard of HIPIC, highly indebted poor countries. It ever happened to us? I think that was 2006, if not thereabouts. Beautiful. Yes, it happened before. What happened? We should give it this particular background. When we got the HIPIC, we satisfied the conditions for getting a debt relief. What happened when we were forgiven that particular debt? Did we make use of the situation of that particular time? Of course, a lot of people may say when they forgive you debts, they think then the money is there. But in actual fact, the money is not there.
Yeah, sure.
Because when you go to say, no, we are pleading for a debt relief, it means you can't afford to find even the money to service that particular debt. But what happened when at least we got that particular relief? Did it give us enough fiscal space so that we could build up the balances and recalibrate ourselves in terms of our finances and the revenues that we made that particular time?
Yeah, I would say I think we got excited and
Yes.
we got carried away, because the mere fact that our debts were we were relieved of our debt. I think we were supposed to sit as a country and plan how we're going to manage our affairs.
Yes, moving forward.
Yes. Why did we accumulate all these debts? Okay, which areas are we trying to develop so that maybe we can also start engaging other people to lend us money? But the excitement, we got carried away. You're saying that you don't have the hard cash.
Yes.
When saying you've been forgiven,
You don't have,
that
yes.
you don't have the hard cash. But in each and every budget, you have that provision for maybe paying debts and all that. That meant that money that was spared to service the debt, I think was put into other things that would help the country grow. But from that debt relief that we had, we did not sit down as a country to agree how are we going to move forward. But now, boom, issues of politics. We want to build more roads for the sake of votes. We want to build more stadiums. We want to build more hotels and what have you. Are those things really what the country needs at that particular time? Maybe the answer could be yes or no, depending on how you're going to to explain those things. Now, the bad thing with our borrowing is that we borrow on consumption.
Yes.
Okay, we don't borrow to invest. To say, okay, we want to develop this particular port. If we develop this particular port, at least as a country, we'll be able to rake in this much in terms of maybe forex, in terms of the region. We're going to open up the region to do one or two things. We borrow just to make a road for the sake of votes. Do those votes really help to improve the country? Do those votes really help to uplift one's life? The answer would definitely be no. So our borrowing, it has to be checked. We fail to check the borrowing. And I would say that from the time that we were relieved of the debts to now, I think we have more debts now comparing to that particular time. So the step to realize that yes, we're indebted and this is not sustainable, it's a very good step. But now, after pushing for the debt relief as the first point to say we are pushing for this debt relief, after that relief, how are we going to move? Okay, I think this is the right time that as a country maybe we should make use of the National Planning Commission. Okay, I think I've seen now we have a government is working on bonds to construct more roads. Is this part of the program by the National Planning Commission, or this is on the political side. Okay, I think the whole reason of having the National Planning Commission, I think, was to manage some of these things.
Yes.
In this whole debt relief call, where are we placing the National Planning Commission? After we are successfully maybe forgiven the debts, how are we going to move? Is the National Planning Commission working on those things? So it will be baseless, it will be meaningless, it will be the same old story. The debts are forgiven, but we are still indebted to other countries. So we need to plan. Okay, debt relief happened, we enjoyed the fruits of debt relief, but we messed up things. Are those countries, are those banks, are those maybe donors going to to dance to our tune this time around? Okay, because the question will be, Ochawes, I forgave you this particular debt. This time around, you also owe me something.
Yes.
Why should I forgive you this time around? Because this is something that we already did, and you messed up with this kind of an opportunity.
All right.
So government should have a very good stand, should come up with a blueprint that will convince a donor, will convince a bank to say, okay, if you're forgiven, we are going to do 1 or 2, 3 things, so that maybe we can start generating our own resources.
All right, Innocent, I also want to look at one very critical thing here is the issue of interest payment. Because when we are talking about domestic debt stock, we are not only talking about government being able to service the principal. No, we are also talking about interest payment. So when you see the budget, the government also makes a dedication of a certain amount of money that is simply meant for servicing of interest in terms of the debt stock that it is sitting on, that it borrowed domestically. Do you think we are going to see any changes when you say, because here we're talking about push for debt relief, but government still here in Malawi is supposed to service some loans that it acquired, and like you rightly put it, we are just talking about now a new bond which has been issued, a 1 trillion kwacha bond. And we heard from Mr. Williams Banda, spokesperson from Ministry of Finance, saying so far they've been able to raise about 13 point something billion Malai kwacha, which they want to use for construction of some infrastructure, roads and other critical infrastructure, the judiciary complex and other roads in the districts in the country and the bridges. Do you think we are on the right track? Because we are talking about debt relief, yet here at home, we are also accumulating yet other debts within the country.
I think the most critical debts are the ones that we borrow from commercial banks.
Yes.
Because they're there for profits. But talking about maybe bilateral donors, bilateral maybe relations and all those things, I think they're a bit flexible. But talking about the commercial banks, I think they need to record profits. They need to record at least they are making progress. So you can't just borrow money from commercial banks and expect that issues to do with
their business.
Yes, issues to do with interest. It has to be a must.
Exactly.
You are servicing the interest. And now coming to the issue of the 1 trillion bond.
Yes. Okay.
Is it well planned? Right. We're talking about the debt relief. At the same time, we are also borrowing.
Exactly.
Is this? Are we not preaching two different messages? Okay. Maybe we would have started with a pleading for debt relief. Then the debt is the debts are relieved on us. Then we start talking about the bonds. But now the bonds first. Then we are pushing for a debt relief.
Is government faced with a very difficult balancing act to do? To say they want money for infrastructure development, and that money maybe can only be realized through issuing of bonds, which is essentially a loan, sort of. And they want also to offload the debt that they have. That is why they have come up with this particular debt plan for this particular government. Is this a very difficult ball to juggle, to say I want to achieve public infrastructure, at the same time I want to relieve myself of the debt that I have as a country, Malawi?
Yeah, it is very difficult ball to juggle. But I think we really need to put our foundation in place. We need to have a solid foundation.
Yes.
Okay. When talking about maybe infrastructure as a country, how are we going to generate resources
yes.
for infrastructure development? Okay. Other countries have developed without maybe borrowing from elsewhere. Within themselves, they manage to contribute something and they have infrastructure. We hear about Jobbik. I think we hear it's pension money. People, we have that pension act, forcing people to pay pensions.
Innovative ways of raising funds.
Raising funds for infrastructure development. Yes. Do we have those in place? Because the issue of bonds, I think it's something that is unsustainable. Okay, we are going to infringe on the private sector. They will not have, they will not have that freedom to borrow from elsewhere. People be like, we are going to take our money to the government because government, is big.
Exactly.
I cannot go to the very same people to say, give me something. They say, no, I think all my monies are given to government. Are we making progress, or we are killing the private sector, which we expect? If the private sector is well treated, you expect the private sector to be involved in infrastructure development. Okay, not government be on the forefront in terms of infrastructure development. I think that's the responsibility of the private sector. Are we putting measures in place that the private sector should be vibrant, so that at least by maybe 5, 6, or 10 years, the private sector is able to erect good buildings.
All right.
It's able to erect, all those things. So we really need to have a picture of what we want to achieve. We should have a plan, a short term, medium term, to long term. The problem we have is politics. It's like each and every leader will say, maybe I might not go beyond 5 years, or after 5 years I want to be re-elected, without putting a blueprint that we should be following. Because of that lack of that financial blueprint, trust me, Jawis, in the next 10 or so years, we'll be coming here discussing about debt relief.
The very same things.
The very same things.
All right, Innocent, let's move on. Before we walk out of the issue of pushing for debt relief, I want your final thought on this one. The government is saying it wants to return to its multilateral and bilateral partners in terms of the dates that they have. In terms of multilateral donors, multilateral partners, we are talking about the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and perhaps the IMF and other maybe institutions. When we talk about the bilateral partners, we're talking about maybe countries, the British, the Americans, the Canadians, the Japanese, the Chinese, those that we owe in terms of the dates that they gave us. They want to return to them to plead for a debt relief. Do you see this being possible? One, you have to factor in the fact that these days the global world has been hit by the COVID pandemic. What is traumatizing to us is the very same things that are also traumatizing them. To say, are they in a position to issue or to give in to the pleading of debt relief for our country? Are they ready to forgive us these particular dates? You look at the World Bank, the IMF, the African Development Bank, if we have any dates with them. And when you look at bilaterally, the Chinese, the Americans, the British, the Canadians, the Japanese, and all other countries that we owe, do you see them being in a position to give us this particular debt forgiveness?
I think it's quite tricky. Maybe talking about multilateral colleagues, I think they will give you some conditions.
Yes.
Okay. What if the condition is you should stop AIP?
Exactly. Now, I want to get back to the issue of HIPIC. Highly indebted poor countries, it has its own conditions. Now, for Malawi, that particular time to have met those conditions, I remember there used to be what they called HIPIC completion point. To say you had satisfied the conditions that were necessary for the forgiveness of those particular dates, that particular time. Yes, now you're talking about conditionalities on which will be the basis for forgiveness. Do you think they're going to issue maybe some conditions? You're just trying to assume.
Yes, I'm just trying to assume, but that this should be a fact. They can't just let go to say, we've forgiven you. Then what next?
Yes.
We need to have some conditions to follow. Are those conditions favorable to the government? Are they favorable to Malawians? Those are some of the questions
that we need to ask ourselves.
Very true. We really need to provide answers for those questions. Now, talking about issues to do with maybe we are borrowing, you're talking about bonds. I think recently we had issues to do with cartels.
Yes.
We were taught
yes.
that there are some cartels. They'll say, no, this particular organization borrow from this particular bank. Okay, managers there, and some CEOs from this particular parastatals, they want to have that interest that we're talking about. So these are some of the things that we have to check.
Yes.
When we are presenting our case to the donors
for a relief.
Yes, we need to explain one or two things,
yes.
because these things came out. Okay, they say, okay, we're going to give you this relief, but what about back home?
Yes,
you still have a dates. How are you going to manage those dates? Okay, if we forgive you now, how are you going to move forward? So we really need to have that plan in place, but it's not as easy as we may think.
Not so.
Yes.
All right. Let's move on. We have done with pushing for debt relief. The second strategy: achieve public expenditure efficiency. We are talking about issues of running an austerity budget. We have to make sure that we cut on expenditure. We minimize expenditure so that we reduce the deficit. When we reduce the deficit, obligations for us to borrow to plug the holes in the fiscal or in the fiscus will be limited, and then will be minimal. Do you see our government being able to reduce public expenditure and increase efficiency in terms of public expenditure?
We have a very big problem with how we manage our public financing system. I'll give you an example. At the moment, we are talking about the AIP. Okay, we're supposed to have 3.7 billion beneficiaries.
Exactly.
Now the price of fertilizer has gone up. Okay, government announced that we're going to trim the figures. Okay, then it makes a U-turn to say no, we no longer, we still have 3.7 million beneficiaries.
Requiring an extra 70 billion Malaikwachi.
You get the point.
Where are we going to get that particular money?
The money channel to AIP was already budgeted for.
Exactly.
Where are we going to take the 70 billion? Okay.
And here we are talking about achieving public expenditure efficiency.
You get the point.
Yet we are looking for an extra 70 billion Malaikwacha for consumption, if anything.
Every time we are going for a mid-year budget review, we have to add more resources to the state residences. We need to add more resources to this particular ministry, that particular department, and what have you. We've never heard of a situation where I'll say, I think this particular, we allocated a lot to this particular. Let's trim, because I think according to our plans, according to how we've managed our budgets, I think this is something that we've done.
Maybe Innocent, on that one I can back them a bit, because they need, let's say, budget for education last year and this year may not be the same, factoring in inflationary pressure to say, because when they are budgeting, they have to go on the market to get the real market prices. So when they get back, they know, okay, the cost of desks last year it was 200 kwacha. This year is 250 kwacha. So they use those market prices to base their requirements in the ministries, departments, and agencies. So maybe in real terms or in nominal terms, they may not be as the same as the prior year. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, you're making sense. But now look, who projects the inflation figures?
Themselves.
They do. They are supposed to factor in that kind of a projection.
Yes.
In their budgeting. Okay? So are we, when coming up with budgets, are we real? It's not a problem to project, to say maybe next year the price of a desk will go up by 20%.
Yes.
Or 50%.
Yes.
So this is how we are budgeting.
Yes.
But now you budget, and then halfway you say, no, we need more resources. When we are budgeting, we need to factor in all those things. Okay? That helps people to be more prudent in terms of managing our public resources. But because people know we have a leeway, we can ask for more. Okay? They can, play around with figures
and they
just
give
anyhow. Okay? And we forgive them the way you're saying, no, this, I can understand them because of one or two things. If we can close all those things that we can understand,
yes.
They have to give us prior. Okay? They give us those things prior, and we understand that, okay, there is a possibility the 6 will go high.
Yes.
There is a possibility fuel will go high. There is a possibility 1, 2, 3, or 4 things. The way we do the budgets in our homes.
Yes.
Okay? It's not like that. Each and every month, if a particular product goes up, then we go to our employers and say, this is okay.
Give me additional funds.
we wake around to say,
Exactly.
okay, this is how I'm going to manage myself. Maybe if I use a personal vehicle, I'll start using public transport. If my kids, if they used to go and have lunch at a particular place, we'll start preparing food from home. I think that's what we're talking about.
To move forward, Innocent, so you are saying to achieve public expenditure efficiency as one of the strategies amongst the debt plan that the Chakwera administration has put in place to bring down levels of debt to manageable levels would not be easy. Is that what I'm reading from you?
It will not be easy. I think we should put aside the political pressures.
Yes.
Okay? I've just given an example for the AIP program. The decision that was made earlier was a good one.
To drop the 1 million beneficiaries.
Exactly. That was good.
It made a lot of sense.
It made a lot of sense. It made a lot of economic sense.
Yes.
But now when the political sense comes in, all that economic sense goes off.
Evaporates.
You get the point.
Yes.
So it's something that we can achieve, but we need to be very disciplined. We need to be very dedicated. We need to communicate to our, to our people to say this is what is happening because of this. This is a pain that you're going to go through. I gave an example of our homes.
Yes.
We tell our kids, because we are building a house, we should expect one.
We
or two
make
things.
Adjustments.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So
That's what we do.
really need to communicate to the masses to say we want to achieve this, and this will follow.
All right. Moving forward, time is not in our best interest. Third strategy amongst the debt plan that Dr. Chakwera has with his administration: boost domestic revenue. Is this an achievable feat that we want to boost domestic revenue collection through Malawi Revenue Authority? Do you see businesses flourishing to provide that particular milk to government? Do you see government employing or coming up with the good tax measures that will allow it to collect more and spur economic activity so that businesses are able to grow their productivity, sell more, realize profits, and make and pay more taxes to government?
It might be okay. Maybe people look at me as if I'm a pessimist, but we have a history.
Yes.
We know how things happen in Malawi. How many people are contribute to the tax base?
Exactly.
In Malawi, there are a few people who do that. Okay. How many businesses contribute to the tax base in Malawi? There are only a few people, or a few businesses that do contribute to the tax base. But how many people benefit from this tax base that we're talking about? Okay, you find that the contributors are just, the figure is just small, but those that are benefiting from that pot, we have that big population
Exactly.
Benefiting from that. How are we going to address issues of contributing into that pot?
Yes.
Okay, we have a lot of people who are subsistence farmers. What would be their contribution? Okay, as a taxpayer, as a citizen, what would be their contribution? That will come with its own implications. Okay, we will not vote for you. You're bringing in, the taxes,
Punitive taxes.
This is what we are used to happen way back. This is
Yes.
why we, all sorts of things. Are we ready to bear that blunt as a country?
Yes.
As a politician, okay, leading the country, are they ready to accept that kind of a backlash? How are they going to incentivize the private sector?
Yes.
So that they can contribute more into, the tax base. So we have all those dilemmas. But if we are focused, we are determined,
Yes.
we are disciplined, we make a proper communication to our masses to say, this is what we want to achieve. I'm pointing out on proper communication.
Yes.
Because most of the times is we make an assumption that Malawians are people who do not understand what is happening. When we do this, you get a backlash. That backlash will come only if we do not communicate properly to the masses. But to increase the tax base, okay, it will infringe on other people's, economic muscle, because it might mean that maybe the taxes will be like a payee, maybe it will go at 50%.
In fact, when the taxes are punitive, it is always difficult for individual households to build capital so that they can start enterprises of their own. So they find themselves to be trapped within the vicious cycle of poverty because they are living a hand to mouth. The money goes to government. They can't build capital of their own to start their own enterprises. If the taxes become punitive, is that what I'm trying to read from you?
Yes.
In 30 seconds, Innocent, can you conclude on the issue of taxation?
Yes, this is what I'm saying. If we have punitive taxes, I don't see Malawians, developing a personal development.
Exactly.
Will be a kind of a step forward. However, it's something that can happen only if we are serious, we are determined, we are able to work together as a unit. We should not have the elite on the other end. We should not have a politician on the other end. Then a Malawian on the other end. That will not work out.
Lastly, Innocent, on the issue of boosting domestic revenue collection, the issue of, we have only looked at the taxation side. Government relies on two things. Taxation, they call it non-tax revenue as well. So let us look a bit at non-tax revenue. On non-tax revenue, the government is saying, we are going to enhance a collection of government user fees and charges. Passports, these are non-tax revenue. Passports, licenses within its departments. There are some user fees in government institutions. Don't you think? Let's look at the issue of service delivery. Is government going to be able to balance good service delivery when they are enhancing a collection of these particular government user fees and charges and these other non-tax revenues? Are they going to enhance the service so that when they are collecting that particular charge or that particular fee should be commensurate with the service which they are rendering to the public? Or the government is simply just going to raise these particular user fees and charges for the sake of collecting the money? Is there going to be that particular balance? And the last one, are they not going to impinge on Malawians by increasing these particular user fees and charges within the government ministries, departments and agencies?
I think that the last part, talking about maybe raising the user fees.
Yes.
I think others will argue to say my problem is not the amount that I'm paying.
Yes.
But my problem is the service
that I'm getting.
Exactly. Okay. Is the service, okay, correlating with the amount you're paying? I think you raised that particular issue.
Yes.
Government, if we want to improve on service delivery, government will have to invest into its own, organizations, its own departments. We're talking about, I'll just give, for argument's sake, ESCOM.
Yes.
Okay? They fail to produce enough electricity. Okay? You have a few hours of blackouts, you have a few hours of interruption, and all those things. Why should one trust ESCOM entirely? People are buying, solar panels and what have you. Government is losing out. Okay? So, if government wants to improve on the efficiency of ESCOM, they need to invest. Okay? We need to find other means of generating electricity.
Yes.
Is government ready to make that kind of an investment for the sake of, revenue collection?
Yes.
The answer probably would be no, because it will mean we have to go back and borrow again. Okay? So this is something that is a very good. It's a very good plan. But when are we trying to achieve this?
The last one, Innocent. Before you crown it all, I want to finish with the very final item in the debt plan that they have: external resource mobilization. They also want to enhance this particular item. They want to enhance external resource mobilization. Maybe two things: securing loans or praying for more grants. This is what I'm looking that government perhaps
maybe
they can do.
Maybe the third one could be enticing Malawians in diaspora
to be sending back remittances.
At least I'll go with on the remittances. I think we need
maybe boosting exports as well.
Yes, we really need to work together with commercial banks. We should work together with those people in diaspora. We should engage them. What is a comfortable way of them sending money back home.
Yes.
Okay. We see a lot of self-made millionaires, billionaires. The others, they claim to be millionaires or billionaires in rands, in US dollars. They are not here in Malawi.
Yes.
How are we going to, make them move, their worth into the country?
Yes.
Okay. Those things are something that maybe we should not make them in our boardrooms. We should engage those people in diaspora. They are committed to help their brothers back home. They are committed to contribute to their government. But as you already put it, I think we don't have what it takes to move them to make that kind of a contribution. And on the other issue to do with exports, we are talking about tobacco. You see how things are happening in the industry.
Yes.
We're talking about the mining. We are failing to put the mining industry together, the extractive industry. We are failing to put it together.
Too many parts are moving.
We hear, the Reserve Bank is buying gold and what have you.
MRI says there are cartels there.
You get the point. And you find some Mozambicans are benefiting
Samples are getting out of the country in huge proportions that don't even make sense.
All those things. We really need to deal with those things. Okay? But now working on enticing a donor to come in, we are asking for that debt relief.
Innocent, time is not allowing us. On the very same issue of exports, we have been hearing the Reserve Bank crying foul over failure in the matters over forex externalization, and also being able to track export proceeds so that whatever we sell out of the country, the money that we realize should be able to be repatriated home. What should we do on that one? I give you 30 seconds before we break.
I think we really need to have a civil service, civil servants who are dedicated to work, civil servants with integrity. This I'm saying because we're talking about maybe made surplus.
Yes.
This year. You go to Mjinji, you see lots and lots of trucks
getting out of the country
for Zambia.
Yes.
Okay. Is that maize accounted for?
Yes.
Or the proceeds from that sale
get back home?
Okay. We have civil servants who are allowing those things to happen. We have laws in place. Where are those laws? Who is supposed to enforce those laws? We need to have, apart from the civil service, we need to have the executive that is serious on those issues. They have to talk, they have to speak against those issues. They have to make directives. They have to, we should see a government moving up and down to address such issues.
All right.
That's the only way that maybe we can see some proceeds of, externalization of our resources getting back home. Otherwise, I think it's a free-for-all, kind of an approach that we are taking.
All right, Innocent, we have been hearing about the Reserve Bank of Malawi crying foul over 7 billion Malawi kwacha, which is lost through illicit financial flows, either through transfer pricing or non-repatriation of export proceeds. We hope government is going to correct that particular anomaly so that they maximize on external resource mobilization. All right, we take a very short break and then we'll be right back shortly after this very break, and then we'll get into our international segment and the newsroom segment here on Cauldron, where editors meet. Welcome back to the Cauldron here on Times Television. This is where editors meet. Each week we make sure that we bring here a top-notch editor from one of the best newsrooms in town so that they can help us to sift through the items that are making rounds in both the traditional and the social media. My name is Jawes Banda. Once again today we have Innocent Mpongolo, the news editor at Mij Radio. Innocent, once again welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let's finish the program for today. We'll not take another break. We'll go straight into the international segment and the newsroom segment because of the interest of time. In South Africa, the South African president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, has announced on Sunday his intention to introduce a vaccine passport amid widespread mistrust of the COVID-19 vaccine in the continent's most affected country. In this televised address to the nation, Mr. Ramaphosa assured that the immunization of the adult population was a necessary prerequisite to fully reopen the economy and avoid a fourth wave of infections, while the number of cases has dropped sharply in the country. Very surprising to you that a vaccine passport has been introduced in South Africa?
I'm not surprised, and I see this also happening to other African countries. I think we've had we've relaxed so much that laxity to the extent that people have to argue to say no, this vaccine is, you know, people are not comfortable with the vaccines. But now the impact of non-vaccinated population, I think, on the economy, on the maybe hospitality industry and other aspects. So, you know, South Africa is also depends so much on hospitality. They also depend much on mining and what have you.
Exactly.
People are afraid to jet into the country because of, you know, the figures. When your country is red, is in the red, you don't attract investors. So it is affecting most economies. So it's not a surprise that this is happening. I'm seeing this going to other African
having
countries.
A spillover effect. All right, now the idea of this particular vaccine passport, just like it is with a health passport in our hospitals, in our clinics, or in our health centers, we have a health passport. The idea of this particular vaccine passport is to enable their citizens to be able to carry out certain transactions in that particular country, to say, this is now my assurance and my guarantee to you that indeed I took the 2 jabs, if one was taking the AstraZeneca, or if I took the jab in terms of the Oxford and other vaccines like the Pfizer and the other vaccines that are on the menu. The idea, is it a very good idea to say, for one to be able to transact, for so many purposes that one would need to be able to transact in that particular country? Is it a good idea to introduce this particular vaccine passport?
Yeah, I would say South Africa and Malawi, I think we have 2 different scenarios. In South Africa, they had a lockdown. I think the better part of the past 2 years, people have been indoors.
Yes.
People have not been going out to conduct their businesses. Unlike in Malawi, where people would choose, to do things freely. We do not have the restrictions to that level. So I think it's quite understandable that the South African government has decided to do that, because if you are protected, the whole reason of putting you on lockdown was for government to protect you. Now you have the vaccine, you are a bit protected. Why can't you go out and do your businesses?
Yes.
Those that are not protected, they should be indoors. So it's something that I feel it's something viable and something commendable on the part of the South African government.
When you are catching the wind of this particular vaccine, don't you see the world heading towards making the vaccine mandatory? And should it be made mandatory, will it not be impinging on the rights of humanity?
I think issues to do with rights are very complicated, because others will also argue to say we have a right to life. Okay? So I'm a threat. You are a threat.
Exactly.
Okay? I'm threatening your life. You are threatening my life. How are we going to resolve this kind of a threat between one another?
Non-interaction.
Non-interaction. Okay? So to minimize the threat that I can kill you or you can't kill me, why can't we just vaccinate?
Yes.
I think that would be...
Or be home.
Yeah. And others would be like, why then should I be forced to, to get this particular jab? But now it's an issue that we should start talking about it.
Yes.
We should start, finding ways, amicable ways of reaching out to one another, so that each and every party should not be, should not feel threatened, should not feel, being infringed upon.
Time hasn't allowed us. Let us finish the program for today. We have got a minute or 2 or so. Let's get straight into our newsroom segment. We know our country from 2016 has had the Access to Information Bill, or now we have the actual Access to Information Act in place. Has it paid any dividends? Are we seeing any difference with the time we didn't have this particular law in place to now? Is there any difference that this particular law is making?
At the moment, we don't have any difference. We can't see any difference having the law and not having it.
Why is that?
I think there are issues to do with operationalizing
yes.
The whole bill. there were one or two things that they said they want to put in place in terms of, penalties, in terms of offenses, all those things. But they're taking forever to come out. They are taking forever to the full implementation of the law. So it's a call for worry, because I think the fight started way back, is it 2010, 2012, thereabouts. I think people have been fighting for this. We have the law in place. We should thank our legislators.
Yes.
Okay. They passed the bill, and the president assented to it. But now to operationalize the whole law, I think it's where we have a problem. Really, should we be struggling just because of this kind of, where we're coming from? I think it's far, and where we are now, I think it should be a walkover. But
right.
we still struggle with this particular law. So let's work so that Malawians can start talking. The issues we're talking about, the debt relief and what have you, all those things, for them to come to actualization. At least we need to have that access to information.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the question I was heading to. I wanted to say, what was the spirit behind the introduction of this piece of legislation? What did it come to address? In a matter of 30 seconds, Innocent.
I think it is intending to address issues of transparency.
Yes.
We don't appreciate what is happening with our resources. We don't appreciate what is happening with particular offices. We're talking about the cartels. We're talking about all those things. I think sometimes they are hearsays. Okay, but if one has that access to go and question a particular department, a particular service provider, I think you have a position to say, okay, these guys are really trying. I think this thing went amiss, and we correct that, we move forward. Each and every Malawian will be happy to say, my contribution to the government, a little contribution that I make, it's been put into good use. But as it is now, I think we are just, I can't trust you.
Yes.
You can't trust me, because there is that lack of information.
Your final thought, Innocent. The introduction of this particular piece of legislation meant that, as per the reports that we had been hearing and as per the discussions that we had been having, journalists or the media were supposed to be the biggest winners with the coming of this particular piece of legislation. Have journalists made the most out of this particular law so far, or are there prospects that this particular industry of the media will make the most out of this particular piece of legislation?
Prospects are there, but we still need to push. But at the moment, I think we are yet to benefit from this.
You sound very low.
Yeah, I think it's quite devastating. The time this was discussed in Parliament and was passed, I think we were all over.
Exactly.
We were so happy, we were so excited. But now we were expecting that maybe a week or two later we'll start, using the very same law. But
my deepest appreciation for taking time to talk to us on the Cauldron.
Thank you so much, always.
I look forward to having you the next time. Welcome, That's Innocent Mpongolo, the news editor at Midge Radio. Thanking you for being there, and I'm just wishing you all the best for being there. I'm saying don't go away, because we've got yet the best here on Times Television. Until next time, keep watching Times TV.